First of all, remember the 2 ransom notes that came early on that went to the TV stations in Arizona? Those are the notes that we believe Savannah Guthrie was referencing when she said that she thought 2 of the notes were real and legitimate. Well, there was a Bitcoin account, and we've got some new information about a transaction in that Bitcoin account early on, and a note in the Bitcoin account specifically that seems like it's either from the FBI or from the Guthrie family. So I'm going to tell you exactly what we know, the new information about that coming up. Also, I'm talking to retired FBI agent Steve Moore, good friend of the show. You guys have seen him many times, but specifically I'm asking him about what some of these profilers have told.
This video is based on publicly available reports, verified news sources, and named on-record sources. All statements reflect what has been reported, not confirmed conclusions. No individual is accused of any crime. The Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, has been officially cleared as possible suspects by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. That clearance stands and no agency has walked it back. A small amount of money was deposited into the Bitcoin wallet. Not by the kidnappers. Not by TMZ. Not by the television stations that received the first ransom notes back in February. Along with that deposit, a note. 3 words. "We are ready to talk." And a link for how to reach out. That transaction happened on February 10th. And according to reporting from Brianna Whitney, a journalist with the CBS station in Phoenix, one of the 2 Arizona stations that received the original ransom letters, there has been no visible activity in that Bitcoin account since. The CBS station has been reviewing the wallet. That is where this new information comes from. A named reporter. A named outlet. A documented disclosure about a transaction that happened in the earliest days of this investigation and has been sitting in the public record, unexamined at this level, until now. We do not know with certainty who made that deposit. There is no way to confirm publicly whether it came from the FBI or from the Guthrie family. But retired FBI Special Agent Steve Moore, a man who has worked kidnapping cases from the inside and who spoke with Brian Entin this week, offered an assessment that deserves to be heard carefully. He said if it was the FBI, and he believes that framing makes sense, what that deposit represents is the Bureau saying something specific to whoever was on the other end of that wallet. This is not a negotiation where you dictate terms. We are both in this. You do not get a dime unless we talk. We are ready. Contact us. The kidnapper holds the victim. The FBI holds the leverage that any transaction requires to move. Neither side has nothing to lose. And real negotiations, Moore said, have room to move. The framework is not just money. It never is. What that deposit, and the silence that followed, tells investigators is its own category of information. A response that was not publicly visible is not the same as no response. What happened inside that wallet after February 10th that has not been disclosed to the public may be one of the most significant pieces of this investigation that nobody has yet been able to examine. But the deposit is not where this investigation is most concentrated right now. This week, the hair sample recovered from Nancy Guthrie's home moved. Not to another private lab. Not to a contractor. To Quantico. To the FBI's own forensic facility. The most advanced DNA testing operation in the country. Investigators and the Pima County Sheriff's Department are calling it advanced testing. Retired FBI Special Agent Steve Moore told Entin something about that hair that deserves to be understood precisely. He said when Nancy was taken, whoever did it leaned over that bed. And when you lean over a bed, when you exert any kind of physical effort at all, hair falls. It happens in restaurant kitchens, which is why cooks wear hairnets. It happens everywhere, every day, without people even noticing. Moore's point is not just that hair falls. His point is that whoever was in that house, whoever leaned over that bed in the 41 minutes between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. on the night of February 1st, may have left the most damning piece of evidence they could have left. Without knowing it. Without being able to go back and remove it. Without any ability to reach into the evidence chain that formed the moment that hair made contact with a surface. You do not send evidence to Quantico for routine confirmation. You send it there when you have something you cannot fully explain with the tools you already have. You send it there when you believe what you are holding matters, and you need to know exactly how much. The hair is at Quantico. Advanced testing is underway. And according to C.C. Moore, the chief genetic genealogist at Parabon Nanolabs, a woman who has personally contributed to solving over 300 cold cases, if that hair belongs to the suspect, it will not just help this case. It will solve it. Not help. Solve. Now the profiler portrait. Because this is the part that most coverage has reported as speculation, and it deserves to be presented as what it actually is. Not guessing. Applied investigative methodology based on documented behavioral evidence. Multiple retired FBI profilers have been working this case. Brian Entin spoke with them this week. He brought their assessments to Steve Moore, a man who has actually used profilers in active investigations, and asked Moore to place them in operational context. Here is what the profilers agree on. The first point of agreement: this was not a stranger. Dr. Gary Bicado walked through the statistics. Not theory. Data. 92% of women who are murdered are killed by someone they knew. Not necessarily someone close. Not necessarily a friend or a family member. But someone who had been in their orbit. Someone whose face, on the day everything changed, did not make Nancy Guthrie afraid. That last sentence is the one that matters most forensically. There was no forced entry. No physical confrontation inside the house. No overturned furniture. No signs of resistance inside those walls. The blood was only at the exit point, on the front stoop, where, according to retired FBI profiler Jim Clementi's publicly available blood spatter analysis, Nancy Guthrie ended up face down within a foot of the ground at the threshold of her own home. An 84-year-old woman, mentally sharp, aware, present, was removed from her home in the middle of the night without producing a single sign of chaos inside it. That does not happen with a stranger. It happens when the person at the door does not trigger immediate alarm. When the presence, at 1:47 a.m., in the dark, in the Catalina foothills, is not immediately recognized as a threat. Not necessarily because she knew them well. Because she knew them enough. Because their face, their voice, their presence at that door in that moment did not immediately read as wrong. That is what the profilers mean when they say this was not a stranger. You would have opened the door too. In the right context. With the right face on the other side. The second point of agreement, and this is where Dr. Amber Burgess took the analysis further, is the question of benefit. She kept returning to it. Over and over. Like a compass needle finding north. Not who did this. Who benefits from this. Who is measurably better off, in any way, with Nancy Guthrie gone. That question cuts through everything. It cuts through the ransom notes. It cuts through the Bitcoin wallet. It cuts through 80 days of public conversation about cryptocurrency demands and TMZ letters and proof of life that never came. Because if the ransom was never real, if it was always theater, then benefit stops being about money entirely. And that opens an investigative door that nobody in the public conversation around this case has fully walked through yet. The profilers describe the suspect with specific behavioral markers drawn from the doorbell footage and the physical evidence. Male, both profilers used male pronouns independently of each other. Unafraid. That word came up independently from two separate people working this case from two separate angles. Unafraid. The surveillance footage from Nancy's front door shows someone moving without hesitation. No looking over the shoulder. No hurried steps. No visible calculation. He covered the camera lens with foliage from a potted plant on Nancy's own porch with a deliberate calm of someone executing a rehearsed step in a sequence they had run through many times before. Moore's read on that word is specific. He told Entin that unafraid usually means overconfident. And overconfident people make mistakes they do not notice until it is too late. They leave hairs on bed sheets without knowing it. They send ransom notes to television stations because they believe the spectacle makes them untouchable. They are not untouchable. They just do not know it yet. The third point, and this is where the profiler portrait becomes most significant for where the investigation now sits, is structure. Dr. Burgess raised it directly. More than one person was involved. A structure. Possibly someone who planned this and someone, or more than one someone, who carried it out. A blueprint and hands. Separate roles. Separate skill sets. One coordinated outcome. If that framing is accurate, and the physical evidence supports it in specific ways, then there are people walking around right now who know what happened to Nancy Guthrie. Not one person sitting with a secret. Multiple people. Each carrying a piece of it. Secrets with multiple owners do not hold forever. They never do. The pressure that exposure creates, the pressure of a stranger DNA confirmation sitting in a federal laboratory at Quantico, the pressure of a search warrant executed at an address 2 miles from Nancy's home in a SWAT operation involving 2 Bearcat trucks and 24 deputies and a full FBI evidence response unit, that pressure does not distribute evenly across multiple people who share a secret. It finds the weakest point. It finds the person who did not fully understand what they were getting into. It finds the moment when holding the secret becomes more dangerous than letting it go. Retired FBI Special Agent Steve Moore, who has worked investigations where that moment arrived, described the dynamic plainly. Secrets held by more than one person eventually become negotiations between the people holding them. When the external pressure reaches a certain level, the internal calculation changes. Not because people suddenly develop a conscience. Because self-preservation is a stronger motive than loyalty. Now, the ransom notes. Because this is the thread that has to be closed before any analysis of this case is complete. The first 2 notes went to Arizona television stations. Those are the ones that Savannah Guthrie publicly referenced when she said she believed 2 of the notes were legitimate, that they contained details about the inside of her mother's home that had never been made public. Specific placements of items. Damage to exterior fixtures. Verifiable information she believed could only have come from someone with actual access. Every experienced investigator working this case has confirmed the same thing, publicly, on the record. Real kidnappers who want money do not go public. You stay quiet. You go directly to the family. You control the information. You do not call the news. So why did they? Moore's framing, stated publicly and on the record, offers 2 possible explanations. Either the people who sent those notes were so overconfident that they genuinely believed going public was leverage. That the spectacle would pressure the family into paying without negotiation. That making the kidnapping a national story somehow gave them more power rather than less. Or the ransom was a costume. Something to dress the disappearance in so that everyone spent 80 days arguing about Bitcoin wallets while the real motive, whatever someone actually needed to accomplish by taking Nancy, went completely unexamined. Both possibilities lead to the same place. Someone who knew her. Someone who had calculated what they stood to gain. Someone who moved through her world without triggering a single alarm until the morning everything went quiet. The Bitcoin deposit on February 10th, 3 words, a link, a readiness to talk, was either the FBI testing the wire or the family following FBI guidance to establish a negotiation channel. The silence that followed in the publicly visible record does not tell us there was no response. It tells us that whatever happened next is being held in a part of the record that is not public. And that distinction matters enormously. Moore said something this week that deserves to be stated without softening. Because it is the most honest assessment of where this investigation actually is. More honest than anything the Pima County Sheriff has said publicly in 80 days. He said the FBI would tell the family, in the private meetings that happen behind closed doors in cases like this, that the chances of recovering Nancy alive are infinitely small. Infinitely small. That is not nothing. That is a specific professional assessment, from a man who has worked these cases from the inside, about what 80 days without a verified proof of life, without a credible ransom transaction, without a confirmed sighting, without a single authenticated contact from whoever took Nancy from her home on North Camino Escalante means in a language that federal investigators use when they are not speaking for the cameras. It does not close the case. It does not stop the investigation. It does not remove a single piece of evidence from the laboratory or a single name from the suspect list. But it frames what the investigation is now building toward, and it is not a rescue. It is a prosecution. And a prosecution requires exactly what is currently being assembled. A stranger DNA profile, confirmed by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, recovered from inside Nancy's home, from an unknown person whose biological material was sitting in that house after every known legitimate presence had been tested and eliminated. A hair sample, now at Quantico, from a scene where, according to Moore's own analysis, whoever leaned over that bed almost certainly shed it without knowing. A Bitcoin wallet that received a deposit and a message on February 10th, and whose subsequent activity, if any, sits in a part of the record that has not been publicly disclosed. A SWAT operation that deployed 2 Bearcat trucks, 24 deputies, and a full FBI evidence response unit to an address 2 miles from Nancy's home, coordinating simultaneous detention of 3 individuals from what appeared to be a single-family unit. And a profiler portrait that describes someone unafraid. Someone known to the victim. Someone operating within a structure that involved more than one person. Someone who has been carrying a secret that now has multiple owners, and multiple points of potential failure. The profilers keep returning to the question of benefit. Let it sit. Not who did this. Who benefits? Because if the ransom notes were theater, if they were designed to redirect attention outward toward a faceless cryptocurrency demand, then the question of what the actual motive was becomes the center of the entire investigation. Not the Bitcoin. Not the TMZ letters. Not the deadlines that came and went without consequence. What did someone need to accomplish by taking Nancy Guthrie? What changed, in any measurable way, when she disappeared? Those are the questions the profilers are working from. Those are the questions that the behavioral evidence, the no forced entry, the immaculate interior, the blood only at the exit point, the operational precision of a 41-minute window, keeps pointing back toward. And the hair at Quantico may already have the answer attached to it. A strand that fell without thinking onto an 84-year-old woman's bed sheets. Recovered by investigators. Sent first to a Florida private lab. then transferred, after 11 weeks, to the most capable forensic DNA analysis facility in the federal government. Advanced testing. A follicle, or enough of a shaft to work with using technology that C.C. Moore, the woman who has solved over 300 cold cases, says could be the piece of information that solves this one. Not helps. Solves. 80 days. Not as a number. As a feeling. 80 mornings that Savannah Guthrie has woken up not knowing. 80 nights her family has gone to sleep with that specific suffocating kind of dread that has no name, because there is no word for what you feel when the person you are looking for might be gone, but no one has confirmed it. Not grief, because grief requires a certainty that has not come. Not hope, because hope at 80 days costs something. Just the not knowing. The absence with no shape. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She raised 3 children alone after losing her husband at 46. She built a life in Tucson for over 5 decades. She brought live music to a hospital. She was a 30-year churchgoer whose single missed Sunday service triggered everything that followed. She was sharp. She was present. She was aware, in the 41 minutes between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m., of exactly what was happening to her. She deserves more than 80 days of Bitcoin debates and ransom note speculation and institutional turf wars between a county sheriff and the FBI. She deserves an answer. And the hair at Quantico, the deposit in the wallet, the stranger DNA confirmed inside her home, the SWAT operation 2 miles away, the profiler portrait of someone unafraid, someone known, someone operating within a structure that has more than one person holding the secret, all of it is converging. Slowly. Deliberately. The way federal prosecutions are built. Not because the evidence is absent. Because every link has to be unbreakable. Every connection has to hold. In a courtroom. Under scrutiny. Against a defense that will challenge everything the investigation has built. That is why it looks like silence. That is why the FBI issues statements about hair samples instead of press conferences about suspects. That is why the SWAT operation produces detentions and a search warrant and a full evidence response unit, and no charges announced that night. The charges come when the case is ready, not when the public is ready for it. If you have any information about this case, contact 1-800-CALL-FBI. tips.fbi.gov. Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. The combined reward exceeds $1.2 million. Completely anonymous. You do not need to be certain. You do not need proof. Investigators build the case. You only need the piece you have. Drop a comment. One specific question. The ransom notes went to television stations, not to the family directly. Do you believe that decision was overconfidence? Or do you believe the ransom was always a costume? And if so, what was it covering? Tell us. We read every single one. And stay close, because the Bitcoin wallet, the Quantico results, the stranger DNA comparison, the 3 individuals detained Friday night, all of it is moving toward the same place at the same time. When any one of those tracks produces a public result, this channel will be the first to break it down. We will see you in the next one.